So I want you to picture someone, a neighbor maybe, just a perfectly normal guy, quiet, polite, works a regular blue-collar job in a quiet Southern California suburb. He's the guy who just blends in. Now, you have to somehow reconcile that image with the documented truth. This same man became a deeply methodical killer, responsible for 4 brutal murders, all carried out with this clinical efficiency. It's that terrifying gap, between the mask and the monster. And that's exactly where we're diving in today.
That gap is everything. We're looking deep into the case of Cimarron Bernard Bell. And our source material, it provides this really clear, very disturbing trajectory. It charts his path from subtle check fraud in the early 2000s all the way to becoming a convicted murderer. 4 calculated killings in just a 14-month span.
And our mission here is really to understand that escalation. How does that happen? We're going to try to unpack the progression of his crimes, focusing on deception, on the absolute violation of trust, and this dangerous illusion of total control he was trying to maintain.
Let's start with the foundation then, the quiet facade. Cimarron Bernard Bell, born April 7, 1974, in South Whittier, California. And reports from his youth they're so consistent. Everyone describes him as introverted, reserved, almost aggressively polite.
Yeah.
Just by all measures, unremarkable.
And that unremarkableness, that was his greatest asset, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It was his camouflage.
By his late 20s, he's holding down a conventional job. He's a janitor, a handyman at Morgan Metals, which is this industrial complex in La Habra. It's steady, it's low profile. It gave him a kind of invisibility, which let him maintain this whole other life. And that was crucial because he was already running a pretty sophisticated criminal operation on the side.
Yeah, and we're talking about check fraud, but not the simple kind. His operation was strategic. The reports say he was using methods like check washing. So he'd get corporate checks, maybe steal them from mailboxes, use chemicals to remove the ink, and then just alter them for huge amounts. This takes patience. It takes meticulous control over every little detail.
And what's so fascinating here is that the first victims weren't really the corporations he was stealing from. They were the people he pulled into his circle. He needed accomplices, people with a lower profile to cash these counterfeit checks for him. It was a calculated kind of exploitation. He was using trust as a tool.
And that brings us directly to 22-year-old Anika Edvinson. She wasn't just a partner in the fraud ring, she was also his girlfriend. And the sources suggest she was completely devoted to him. She saw this smart, ambitious guy. But to Bell, she was just an asset in his operation, an asset whose value depended entirely on her silence.
The second that silence was even questioned, though, everything changed. Authorities start investigating the fraud, and rumors start flying around Bell's little network that someone is talking. And for a guy whose entire motivation is absolute control, that's an existential threat.
It is. And paranoia just takes over. He fixates on Anika as the leak. It's important to say the sources made it clear it didn't matter if it was true or not. The mere perception that his authority was threatened was enough. In his mind, that justified elimination. He shifted, just like that, from financial crime to preemptive violence.
And how he did it it's just so disturbing. November 11, 2003, Bell invites Anika to meet him at his job at that industrial park. She shows up thinking she's going to have a private talk with the man she loves. Instead, she's walking right into a trap.
The documentation of this first murder it's described with this stark clarity, just cold precision. There was no reported struggle, no argument. It was just a deliberate act to eliminate what he saw as a weakness. And then he left her body right there, inside the industrial complex, the very place he was paid to clean week after week.
I have to stop on that detail. Why there? Why his own workplace? I mean, was it just convenience or was there something more to it?
Well, it speaks volumes about the psychology of control, right? By doing it at Morgan Metals, he eliminates any risk of outside witnesses. He proves he can manage a crime scene, just like he manages his daily chores. That janitor job gave him access. It gave him visibility. It was this perfect mirror of the control he had over people. He had mastered the illusion of normalcy so well that he could turn his ordinary workplace into a site of extraordinary violence.
So he's eliminated a threat, he's gotten away with it, and in his mind, he's crossed a line. He's learned that the human cost is just another variable he can control. And his appetite doesn't shrink, it grows. It translates that need for power into a need for bigger, faster money.
Which brings us to early 2004, the next escalation. He needs a new partner for a much bigger score, and he finds 21-year-old Brielle Michael Lee. And together they come up with a plan that goes way beyond check fraud. This is a direct lure for cash.
The scheme was, it was just ingeniously cruel. They started advertising a luxury car a modified Chevy Monte Carlo, for a price that was almost too good to be true. And they were targeting young buyers, people looking for a deal.
And the trap worked. It caught 3 young men who were just car enthusiasts. They were operating on good faith. Mario Larios, who was 23, Edgar Vallis, 22, and Fernando Pina, 25. They just saw a great opportunity. They had absolutely no reason to think they were walking into mortal danger.
And the ambush was just meticulously planned. January 27, 2004, the 3 men drive over to Bell's house in South Whittier to finalize the sale. Neighbors later said they heard nothing unusual, nothing at all, which just highlights the quiet efficiency of it. They were brought inside and ambushed. The sources are clear. This wasn't a deal gone wrong. This was a robbery and murder planned from the start to eliminate all witnesses.
And the aftermath was devastatingly public. The very next day, police find a suspicious car nearby. Inside, they find 2 of the bodies. A third is in the trunk. And just like that, the quiet, dual life that Bell had built it's shattered. 3 murders in a suburban neighborhood, that draws massive media attention, a full-scale police response.
But even with all his planning, his entire network was built on fear, on exploitation. And so his downfall, ironically, came from the very people he tried so hard to control.
That's right. The huge break in the case came when a former girlfriend, a different one, not Mika, was arrested on some unrelated fraud charges. And facing her own legal trouble, she started cooperating.
And this is where it all connects.
It is. During her interrogation, she reveals that Bell had just casually boasted to her about killing 4 people. And crucially, she was able to describe the location of Mika's murder. She identified the La Habra industrial site. That was the undeniable key investigators needed. It confirmed the link between the missing girlfriend and the guy they suspected in the triple homicide.
And the forensics followed pretty quickly after that.
Oh, yeah. Ballistic evidence, traces of blood at his home, at his workplace, it all corroborated her story. And the date they arrested him, it just crystallizes the betrayal at the core of this man's life. Cimarron Bernard Bell was taken into custody on February 14th, 2004.
Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day, a holiday all about connection, about fidelity. 2 concepts he had just ruthlessly weaponized.
The trial took years, a lot of appeals. But the prosecutors, they successfully painted Bell as this manipulative predator who moved from white-collar crime to cold-blooded murder without missing a beat, motivated by ego, power, and money.
And what really stands out in the court records is his demeanor. He maintained this absolute chilling detachment through the whole thing. Witnesses said he was calm, composed, rarely showed any emotion. He treated the whole proceeding and the lights he took like they were just abstract technical problems to be solved.
But isn't some level of that, of compartmentalizing, common for violent criminals? What made Bell's detachment so different, according to the sources? Was it just arrogance?
It wasn't just compartmentalization. It was the clinical lack of passion. The sources really emphasized that he saw his victims as completely disposable assets. He didn't kill out of rage or some sudden impulse. He killed because it was the logical next step to keep his double life solvent. And that clinical efficiency, it just persisted right through the trial. It suggests a profound incapacity to even recognize their humanity.
After all that testimony, the jury found him guilty on all counts. On April 19th, 2011, Bell was sentenced to death. His accomplice, Braille Michael Lee, however, his fate was very different.
Yes, Lee was convicted of second-degree murder. And because the court saw him as a participant but not the mastermind, he got a sentence of 40 years to life. It really highlights that the court saw Bell as the central figure of malice here.
So when we pull all this together, what's the key insight we should take away from Bell's story? I mean, this is more than just a grim true crime tale. It feels like an anatomy of a very specific kind of evil.
Precisely. The core lesson here is that Cimarron Bernard Bell was defined by this craving for absolute control. He saw people as just components, mechanical parts in his life strategy. His methodical approach to check fraud was just practice for his approach to murder. He wasn't fueled by chaos. He was fueled by the cold strategy of eliminating any obstacle, whether that obstacle was a paper trail or a person.
And if you connect this back to the larger picture, this case is just a stark, uncomfortable study of how narcissistic control can weaponize basic human ideas like trust and love. His victims weren't targeted because they were foolish. They were targeted because they believed in the simple expectation of human decency. They trusted him.
Exactly. And the central tragedy of the deception here is that Bell lived this perfect, quiet life right up until the moment he didn't. His story just proves that sometimes the most dangerous people aren't the ones who seem threatening or unstable. They're the ones who are masters at blending in, hiding complete ruthlessness behind that mask of normalcy.
If you were to visit the quiet streets of South Whittier today, or drive past that industrial complex in La Habra, you wouldn't see anything. There are no markers that 4 innocent lives were stolen there, that one of California's most methodical killers just went about his daily routine on those very streets. The physical evidence is gone, but the lesson remains.
And the case really forces us to ask a tough question. If we accept that the fraud relied on controlling systems and the murders relied on the ultimate control over life, then what does the story of Cimarron Bell tell us about the fundamental risk we take when we trust someone whose only motivation is purely self-serving dominance?
It's a reminder, isn't it, that sometimes the stability people project on the outside can be the most effective camouflage for what's inside. The monsters, as they say, often live right next door.
If you enjoyed this video and want to dive deeper into more cases like this one, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to like the video if you found the story compelling, and share it with your friends and family who might be interested in true crime and mysteries. By subscribing, you'll stay up to date with all our latest content and join a growing community of curious minds exploring the most fascinating cases. Click the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything.